It's Thursday, 23rd of March 2023, and welcome to the Water Action Platform. This is the 50th webinar. What started as an emergency COVID response has grown and changed so much. The first one was 27th of March 2020, and we were desperately finding and sharing information on how we as a water sector should respond to SARS-CoV-2. 2 years on, we wouldn't still be here without these wonderful organisations on your screen now, the sponsors of the Water Action Platform and the Trial Reservoir. Thanks to their generosity, we're about to dive into topics on caring for water in a very intimate way in New Zealand, a collaborative hydropower project with a university and a utility that was the first of its kind in South Africa, a debate about whether chlorine is a life-saving hero or a chemical villain, a showerhead review with ISLE's dedicated professionals. Let's get started. WaterCare is New Zealand's largest company in the water and wastewater industry. They extend lifeline services to 1.7 million people in and around Auckland. They operate 16 water treatment plants and maintain 9,500 kilometres of water pipes. They also collect mixed trade and domestic waste through another 8,500 kilometres of pipes, and they take that to 18 wastewater treatment plants for treatment and disposal. So far then, it sounds like what lots of people watching the webinar do. The unique thing about WaterCare though is its iwi Mauri and their deep personal connection to nature. For most of the world, this is a totally different way of thinking about customer engagement and catchment management. Piers spoke to Richard Waiwai recently and learned what personal connections to the environment and what meaningful engagements with communities actually look like. Richard is Mauri. You'll hear him speaking Mauri in a moment, and he has a unique role to build relationships between communities called iwi and WaterCare.
Tēnā koe. Tēnā koe, Piers, hauana nā mihi kia koe I runa I nā huatano o te ao Māori me ki. Nō reira koe tēnei tanata, ko Richard Waiwai tōku ingoa. Ko mā tātua taku waka, ko panikire taku mauna, ko waikare tā heke taku awa, ko nai tū hoi taku iwi. Great to meet you and catch up with you this morning. In my tū hoi world, in my world, we always acknowledge our environmental connections first and foremost. Therefore, my ancient canoe or my waka is mā tātua. My electrifying waters, my river is Waikare Tāheke. My mountain, my sacred mountain, as you can see in my background picture, is Panikire. My bathing waters of my ancestors is Waikare Moana. And my people are the Tūhoi people. And I am Richard Waiwai. And I work for WaterCare. I am the chief of iwi Māori strategy and relationships. WaterCare is our head office, our main office is based in Auckland and Newmarket. And we have a number of plants throughout the Auckland region, far from South Waikato area, right through up into Wellsford, Warkworth, which is towards the north. WaterCare itself, we provide lifeline services to 1.7 million Aucklanders. We are the largest company in the water and wastewater industry. We supply more than 400 million litres of water for Auckland every day. We draw water from 27 sources. We collect and treat and dispose of around 409 million litres of wastewater daily, which includes trade waste from industry. We carry out a significant work to upgrade and build infrastructure and maintain levels of service as we look at the population growth here in Tāmaki Makaurau being Auckland. One of the fundamentals of our mahi at WaterCare, mahi being work, and the way we operate is our relationship to mana whenua or to iwi. Mana whenua being our indigenous clans or our hapu, and iwi being our tribes. So within our partnerships and our treaty context, we pay huge regard to those relationships with our iwi. And so the way WaterCare operates is in that space is that we involve our iwi in a number of our infrastructure projects from the beginning, like design work, and right through to the end. Having our mana whenua our iwi involved in the project and actually supporting us from a Indigenous lens helps us arrive at the best decision that we can from a water industry perspective as well as a Indigenous cultural lens. So just this morning at 4:30 a.m. New Zealand time, we had the opening of a new wastewater treatment plant in one of our towns called Burgess, $128 million upgrade. But the significant part of it is that we've been working on this consent since 2014. And we would never have got to today if it wasn't for our Indigenous people, our hapu, and our iwi being involved and actually supporting the consent and the process itself, looking at the design and where we got to. I go back to 2014 when we started our first lot of engagement and or consultation, for want of a better word. As our staff start going through this process, you start getting more intimate and understanding each other and understanding why our people may oppose to certain methodologies and or technical infrastructure. And then our technical people get to understand from an iwi lens, a tribal lens, the meaning of the river itself. A discharge to a water body as important as the Waikato awa, where she is deemed to be a living ancestor for their people. We have to make sure that from a infrastructure, from a technology perspective, what we were doing was going to be for the better health and well-being of the water body, of the awa, Waikato. And so that was a huge undertaking by all parties involved. We as WaterCare are taking in a way of doing our work, our business differently. Te mana o te wai. Yeah. And te mana o te wai looks at the health and well-being and the spirit of water first and foremost. Looking after the water body is paramount. Well-being of water is to the forefront of all our decisions in the way we build, the way we abstract water, the way we discharge. So for us as iwi, as tribal people, we say that the river is us, we are the river. Our focus is always on making sure our environment, the environment that sustains us, i.e. water, land, is to the fore and protected.
Thank you, Richard. For me, the standout message is that WaterCare involves iwi in their infrastructure projects right from the design work and every step of the way, all the way through to the end, with actual engagement through an Indigenous lens that helps WaterCare arrive at the best possible decision they can to protect the natural world. Tribal involvement in the design enables WaterCare to look after the water body as the sacred ancestor she is. This very intimate and personal relationship with the natural world results in a level of respect and care for the environment that differs hugely from the bolted-on public consultation that many of us are used to. Te mana o te wai, the health and well-being and spirit of water is top priority in all of WaterCare's decisions. If we all treated our water bodies with love like this, it would revolutionise how we make decisions in our own parts of the world. Next, we're looking into a network hydropower project here in South Africa. This project started at the University of Pretoria. It was funded by the Water Research Commission, and Professor Van Vuren and his student, Marco van Dijk, asked whether excess energy in distribution systems could be used to generate electricity. Most of South Africa's water supply is pumped up to storage facilities from where it gravitates into the network. There's an opportunity whenever there's low demand from the consumers, and you can use the high pressure to generate electricity.
This is a Pelton turbine, only a 1 kilowatt. The water would enter the turbine through this pipeline. It will be forced through a nozzle The nozzle then increases the velocity that hits the buckets, and that would in turn turn the turbine. The water from this would then fall straight into the reservoir through the opening here at the bottom. A very small unit, but there is still application for that in the conduit hydropower environment.
Once the concept was proven, it was time to expand, and Bloem Water came on board.
Based on a study done by the University of Pretoria, Bloem Water decided to pursue the implementation of a hydropower plant at our Brandkop Reservoir.
The Caledon Bloemfontein pipeline supplies potable water from the Velberdach Dam. The treated water is pumped with a high-lift pump station 6.7 kilometres to the De Hoek Reservoir. From De Hoek, it flows through gravity mains 47 kilometres to 8 Cape Reservoir and a further 59 kilometres to Brandkop. 8 Cape and Brandkop can generate 350 to 400 kilowatts each, using a 96 kilowatt cross-flow turbine.
The turbine that we use here at Brandkop is a standalone turbine. That means that we are not tied to the grid, to the Eskom grid. And the electricity that we produce out of the synchronous generator that is connected to the turbine is in use for the Bloem Water office only. The process we follow is that the main line that comes from Velberdach Dam is dissipating the water into the Brandkop Reservoir through 5 control valves. With it, there's a lot of pressure in the pipeline, which contains then the energy that is going to be dissipated in the reservoir as well. To make use of this energy, we decided to take a part of the pipeline, we rerouted that to the hydro turbine, and it goes through the turbine, and that drives then a generator. The synchronous generator produces then the electricity, which is going to be used by Bloem Water's head office only. The water that comes out of the turbine actually goes back into the reservoir via a channel underneath the turbine. And there's no contamination whatsoever into the water as such.
The cost associated with the turbine was about $55,000. The electrical work cost about $44,000 and mechanical work about $39,000. In total, the project cost was $194,000. The sharp-eyed among you will have noticed that this was back in 2014 to 15. The payback period was 7 years. For the last word on lessons learned, I spoke to Marco, the student on the project, who's now a lecturer at the University of Pretoria.
Obviously, a big advantage for conduit hydropower installations is that there is no need for most cases environmental impact assessments. It is water that's already flowing through the pipeline. In many cases, a turbine can just be installed in an existing chamber at the end of that pipeline, stay involved in it. And although, yes, it's running and it works, there is constant sort of support needed by them from, let's say, the designers, in this case it was me and my team, that to keep it running, because they would like to make a modification or a change, and you would like to say, okay, but what will that impact? But that they now generate clean renewable energy from their own infrastructure is amazing. And I think there's really scope, and that's the other thing we saw from this, is that there's scope for further improvements and further expansion, and even linking it to other renewable sources like a solar PV on that same site. If you start building the infrastructure for one, you could maybe piggyback onto that and build additional infrastructure or utilize the other infrastructure like the roof of the reservoir. The city of Tshwane, for instance, have already gone and took a mayoral committee decision that any new reservoirs that they build, the designers should also look whether or not there's an opportunity to include some hydropower at that reservoir site. The city of Tshwane has gone and built some plants, some pico and some micro installations. And then Rand Water had, a year ago, they had a tender out for the installation of 4 sites, or the potential to install at 4 sites. And in total, that would have been between 12 and 13 megawatts of conduit hydropower that could be generated. Hopefully, there are more water utilities and municipalities that will start incorporating this, and in this way, reduce their carbon footprint.
Thank you, Marco. This is a beautiful example of how research to implementation succeeds when there's a truly collaborative relationship. We now come to Both Sides Count, in which we invite 2 senior people from the water sector to present their case for or against a particular issue. You may recall that the key feature of this feature is that the debaters may actually be arguing for a position they don't personally agree with. Why? Well, we think it's increasingly important in today's polarised world that we can show there are two sides to most issues, and even if we ourselves hold a firm position, reasonable people can understand and comprehend the perspective from the other side. So for our second Both Sides Count debate, we have Martin Curry and Eric Dreesen. The topic we asked them to give their viewpoint on is chlorine in tap water, life-saving hero or chemical villain? You can join in. If you click on the purple arrow on the right-hand side of your screen, you can open the chat box and click on the poll. In particular, if you want to share your own view or say whether your views changed after you've heard Martin and Eric, please add a comment. Otherwise, just relax and enjoy what they have to say.
I think we should embrace the biofilm for a few reasons. When you dose chlorine and you have a chlorine system, you get disinfection byproducts like 3 halomethanes and many other nasty chemicals. And as most of us know, these are carcinogenic. And having system with these byproducts in our drinking water network, that's something that we should not want. Secondly, I think when we are chlorinating our system, that means that something is not okay, because we are fighting symptoms, we are fighting bacteria in our systems. And I believe we should fight the causes or the reasons why this is not in balance. How we do it in the Netherlands, we make sure that there are no nutrients in our tap water. So there's no biodegradable organics in the water. When there is no feed for the animals, they won't survive. So that's the direction that we take in the Netherlands. I think lastly, chlorine is not tasty. When a Dutch person goes to France, they buy bottled water. But I think in the Netherlands, we are one of the countries where we drink very little bottled water. So when you have an unchlorinated network, that stimulates drinking tap water, which is a good thing, I believe.
The World Health Organization recommends that, at the point of delivery, the minimum residual concentration of free chlorine should be 0.2 milligrams per litre. So chlorinated water is perfectly safe to drink. Personally, I'd much rather drink disinfection byproducts than drink pathogens. But that's not what this debate's really about, because either system, when designed and operated well, can deliver water that's free of both disinfection byproducts and pathogens. Disinfection byproducts are the product of a reaction between a disinfectant and organic matter. So there are two ways you can stop their formation. Not adding the disinfectant will clearly work, but you can also remove the organic matter. But if you're not adding a disinfectant, you'll need to remove the organics anyway to cut off the pathogen's food source and stop them from breeding in the network. Perhaps counterintuitively, the real beauty of residual chlorine is that contaminants rapidly consume it. So if chlorine's still detectable at the point of use, I'm happy.
So the biofilm in again the Netherlands and other Nordic countries, that's basically an whole system in balance. We have the biofilm in the inner side of the tube, and that sits there and it's stable. It's in balance with the water and the pipe wall, if you like. And we believe if there's not enough nutrients and organics for the bacteria to grow further, that's a balance that you want to maintain. And so it's a matter of making sure that you're not feeding more organics into the system or that organics are leaking into the system. So I believe when you have an distribution network and a water treatment at a certain level, it should not be needed to have residual chlorine in the system.
Even if you manage to completely eliminate leakage into the network, the best maintained network is still at the mercy of its customers. Cross connections can result in reverse flow into the network. Non-return valves can and often do fail. So at some point, you're going to have someone pumping pathogens into your network. The flow rates may be so small that there's no detectable pressure change, but those contaminants will use up your residual chlorine. So you know there's a problem when there's no chlorine. Without residual chlorine, you'll most likely find out when people get ill.
So actually, it's pretty obvious that an unchlorinated system is by far the best, because bottled water is horrific for the environment. Chlorine is not tasty at all, and we all want to have a balanced system, in balance with nature, in balance with the water quality. So I believe it's a very clear option. We all should want an unchlorinated system.
A single cigarette is unlikely to give you cancer. You also only need to worry about disinfection byproducts slightly exceeding the regulated concentrations if they do so for years. But without disinfection, you could be dead within the week from one of many pathogens. Which would you rather risk?
So, I mentioned at the start that part of the fun is that Eric and Martin might be arguing for a viewpoint that is the opposite of their personal opinion. We do this to emphasise that sensible thinking people can understand both sides of an issue. With this in mind, it's only fair to give them the chance to reveal to us all now what they really think.
Of course, we in the Netherlands and in the Nordics, we are in a comfortable situation because we are in colder climates, and our soil, our ground is always around 12, 13 degrees Celsius. And that's the reason why we can have an unchlorinated system, because in those cold temperatures, biofilms don't grow that much at all. I am concerned about climate change because we have seen in distribution networks, especially in the smaller bits at the end of the network, where we see the water temperatures rising in the past few years during the summer. So it's a big question whether we will be able to maintain this unchlorinated system. And I would not be surprised that even in the Netherlands, that in some point in time, we need to consider chlorination.
Yeah, I could happily argue either side of this debate. My grandparents had 3 taps at their kitchen sink. I loved the taste of the spring water from the 3rd tap. So if I could have appropriately treated water supplied through a network that didn't need chlorine, I'd jump at the chance. Just last week, the US EPA proposed a 4 nanogram per litre limit on these forever chemicals. Treating to that level will also remove pathogens food. And the public are getting increasingly concerned about chemicals in general. Combine that with the increased formation of disinfection byproducts and the increased chlorine decay at the higher temperatures we'll see with global warming, and I wonder if chlorine's days may be numbered. So, if anyone has a way of determining gross fecal contamination as effectively and affordably as residual chlorine, please do let Joe know. It'd make an amazing trial reservoir project.
Weren't they both brilliant? Thank you, Martin and Eric, for being absolutely excellent. Now, if you were watching that at home and thought, I want to do this too, then come on board, just get hold of Piers or me. And if that left you thinking that the decision whether to chlorinate or not is easy, then Martin apologises for oversimplifying things a little bit. There's an hour-long debate on this very topic taking place on the 4th of May, and we really hope you can join us. The details are on screen, and they're going into the chat box now. And on to Showerhead Showdown. We at Isle have a team of very dedicated and serious scientists and engineers whose purpose in life is to hunt down and analyse innovations in water and wastewater. 2 of our senior staff undertook rigorous assessments of 2 water-saving household devices. And this is what Stuart and Thomas had to tell us.
Hey there, web fans. This is Thomas Jacks, shower enthusiast, international hygiene influencer. Today we're going to be testing some water-efficient shower heads. It's time for Showerhead Showdown. Here we go. Starting with the shower handle from a Swedish company called Altered. Costs 179 euros, which is not cheap. Apparently gives you a great shower experience while using 75% less water. How does it do that? So let's get one. Here it is, the imaginatively named shower handle from Altered. Looks nice enough, design-wise. Shiny metallic finish. Got quite a reassuring weight. Switch feels good. this part couldn't be much easier. It's got a standard shower head fitting, so it takes less than a minute to take the old shower head off and screw this one on. Let's fire it up. So it's quite hard to see, but what we've got is quite a wide, fine spray. That's called dome mode, and it's supposed to use 3.5 litres per minute. Change modes using the switch, and that is a heavier pulsing flow. That's called monsoon mode, and that's supposed to use 6.5 litres per minute. That was a good shower. Didn't feel any less satisfying than my old shower head. I like the pulsing monsoon mode. Not sure I'll be using the wide spray dome mode very much. Now we're going to use my professional testing rig to see if Altered's claims about water consumption hold up. Next up, we've got the GS3 showerhead from a Swiss company called, I believe, Josa. Costs 109 Swiss francs, which is essentially 109 euros. Water consumption of 4.5 litres a minute at 1.5 bar. There's a separate page over here all about the technology bits. Josa technology, based on the principle of droplet fractioning that is used in rocket engines and the medical industry. Every drop of water is used efficiently. The GS3 from Josa. From an aesthetic perspective, I have to say I preferred the altered shower handle at first glance to the Josa GS3. The colours aren't to my taste, although you could argue that's my fault for choosing this version rather than the white or the black version. The design isn't as elegant, and it doesn't weigh as much, so it doesn't have that sort of the same quality feel. Couldn't be easier. Test fire. And again, it's quite a wide, fine spray. That's supposed to be 4.5 litres per minute at 1.5 bar. At first glance, it seems wider and finer than the monsoon mode on the altered shower head, but not as fine and wide as the dome mode. So it feels like somewhere in the middle. That was nice. It is a wide, fine spray, but they've done it in a very satisfying way, so it feels like a warm, fuzzy water blanket. I'm joined by fellow hygiene influencer Stuart Moss for feedback and analysis. Stuart, how did you find the showerheads?
I enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed the altered, but only on the higher water-consuming setting. The lower water-consuming setting was just too low for me. And I enjoyed the Josa. I think it was a really good shower. Definitely less water than my regular original old shower head, but certainly enough to have an enjoyable shower.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm happy with both, apart from the most water efficient setting on the altered. And how was the feedback from your family, Stuart?
Okay, so my wife used both shower heads, and she washed her hair after going for a run, and she felt it performed very well. Again, it obviously less water, but it allowed her to wash the shampoo out of her hair, and it was all good.
I live with two people, both female, and it got both shower heads got a fairly strong thumbs down. They didn't do the job for hair washing, and my flatmate said that the pulsing motion of the altered actually made her feel sick. Some quick calculations based on 1,000 showers per year. That's for a household of 3. The payback periods are quite impressive. Based only on energy consumption or energy savings, the JOSA would pay for itself in 4.7 months and the altered in 9.6 months. And in terms of CO2 emissions reduction, the JOSA would save 540 kilograms of CO2 per year, and the altered 434 kilograms. Pretty impressive.
Nice. Awesome.
Verdict, Stuart?
So I like both of them, the JOSA and the altered on the higher setting. And I like the design of both of them as well. One of them's got a metallic feel, the other plastic, but I don't mind the plastic of the JOSA. And now I know that it's got these higher carbon emissions reduction savings and a lower cost. I would go for the JOSA.
I'm going to be slightly less virtuous and say I would go for the altered and use it on the higher water consumption setting, which is still good, still gives you a good payback, but you're a slightly better person than me. All in all, verdict's pretty impressed with the way it's turned out.
I would shower with both. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Thomas and Stuart. I'm so proud that Isla's upholding the tradition of self-experimentation. It has a long and valuable history in scientific research. What Thomas and Stuart have shown us, however, is that household water-saving fittings like these can actually save significant amounts of water and energy. That means the choices we make at home make a difference, not only in our own homes, but also globally. That brings us to the end of our 50th Water Action Platform. Once again, I would like to thank this month's contributors and all of our sponsors. We will be back on the 20th of April with Peers in Charge. Many of you live in countries where you'll adjust your clocks between now and the 20th of April, so keep an eye on the time slot. It may change in your local time, and we really want to see you again next month. Until then, keep asking questions, keep sharing, and keep safe.